Thank you so much, Brenda. Well, just to recap here, we know that shelter in place has now been lifted. Police are asking citizens to still avoid the area, but they're telling us the suspect is in custody. We expect some update from Atlanta police here shortly, but we have a team of reporters following every step of this. And let's go to our Bridget Spencer, who's been talking with people directly impacted who saw this gunman outside. Bridget?
Right, we are on Crescent Avenue. Just to give you an idea of where we are, it's somewhat next to, or maybe a block over from the Four Seasons Hotel. You can see there's still police activity, but they have started to take down some of the tape. We are told, as you've mentioned, the suspect is in custody. That shelter in place now lifted. A lot of people relieved to hear that news, since a lot of people live and work around this area. So they were certainly frightened when they heard a barrage of gunfire early on. Now, a couple we talked to right when this happened, just after 2 o'clock, they said they had just checked into the Four Seasons Hotel, and then they were immediately, as you can imagine, frightened to hear information that they were told that there was a SWAT standoff going on in their exact hotel. So a lot of people are really just frightened and frustrated by what's happening, but we are about to get an update from Atlanta police here in the next 20 minutes. But as we've been seeing, some of the roads are still blocked off, and this is in the middle of rush hour, so if you can avoid it, avoid Crescent Avenue, 13th, 14th, as well as this section of 14th in particular, because that is where all the activity is. But again, we will be getting more information from Atlanta police and relay that over to you. But I did talk to some men just a moment ago who told me they actually saw that suspect, allegedly saw that suspect firing, and that certainly frightened them. So we're still trying to get details on what happened there. But that suspect, we're told, is in custody. Sending it back over to you.
Bridget Spencer reporting for us live. If you are just joining us, Atlanta police is confirming that that suspect, as Bridget mentioned, is in custody, and there have been, at least what we know so far, no injuries, no one hurt. But there is going to be a press conference held here shortly. We're waiting for Atlanta police to release those details.
Our chief